John Deere is screwing with you again. They've laid off 1,000 workers in the last couple months and are setting their sights on Mexico to ship more jobs. Tell us what's going on.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Jordan. I appreciate it. Hello, Steve. Nice to see you. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Jordan. Right now, we're experiencing massive layoffs in Iowa and Illinois as Deere shifts production down to Mexico. They've cited several reasons for this. One is it's driven by labor market dynamics. In that contract we got in 2021, we had 25 years of concessionary contracts before we even got a little bit back in 2021. Basically, they alluded to that in negotiations that, we're going to pay for it. They also cite, downticks in agriculture purchases. But let's be honest, agriculture equipment is a cyclical business. There's down years, there's up years. But, John Deere's been in the wake of record profits for very many years now.
In fact, Colin, put that back up. 42% increase in profits in 2 years? And they want to talk about market dynamics? Are you kidding me?
Well, it's a short-sighted greed, and it's a losing long-term strategy. In 2023, they experienced $10 billion in profit. They spent $7.2 billion in stock buybacks, paid $1.4 billion in shareholder dividends, and awarded CEO John May $26.7 million. And hey, if you got an extra $4 million laying around, you can buy his estate, 80-acre estate in Moline, Illinois. I'm sure he's getting ready to bail out in his golden parachute somewhere.
Steve, this must be the freedom Kamala Harris was talking about. Freedom for shareholders.
Yeah. Free DUMB. That's how I say
it's
it.
the only people they care about is the shareholder. See, the way the business cycle works, and I was saying it in the last segment, the way the business cycle works is it's maximizing shareholder value, minimizing worker value, and literally shitifying their product for the buying public so that they can go to the next one because they have this like complete and utter planned obsolescence baked into everything that they do. So this whole model for money making, cut the workers' pay, literally ensure the product sucks so they have to buy it again, and simultaneously ensure that the rich get richer. And this is literally the game plan from start to finish. Anything other than that's a fucking lie at this point. It really is. It's just got to be said.
Well, I think that, John Deere is an iconic American brand. It's known for its quality equipment made by American union workers. And, these farmers and different construction businesses and forestry, they pay these big bucks because they have certain expectations, right, of quality product. And a lot of these small towns here in Iowa and Illinois, like Dubuque, Waterloo, Ottumwa, Des Moines, Moline, Davenport, these job losses are going to be devastating to these communities. And a lot of these farmers live in these communities. Again, I'd like to reiterate the fact it's a short-sighted greed. And I think the long-term effects will be devastating to the communities and to John Deere's business as well.
And Chris, you saw in the UAW strike last year, obviously there was a lot of sticking points, but one of them was the UAW fought for protections if they close plants so that they can't just, drop of a hat, close plants, so that workers got, at least 2 years of extended health care, et cetera, et cetera. What kind of protections did John Deere or, negotiations of the last contract, can they just lay these people off and, give them 3 months pay and health care, or tell us what people are getting?
Well, built into the contract is a factory closing moratorium, which basically says that they can't close any factories in our 9-unit bargaining agreement before the end of this contract, which expires November 1st of 2027. But what does that exactly mean? I mean, they could keep 2 people there and keep it as a warehouse. It's not closed, right? So that's a pretty gray area. For me personally, I've worked down in Ottumwa. I was very outspoken during the strike of 2021. I had a lot of media coverage, and, basically I had a large target on my back when I came back to work. I was fired last year around the end of June. filed a grievance to the union, won my job back with back pay. Then fast forward to February this year, they were going to lay off, they said, between 80 and 120 people because they were shifting the production of the mower conditioners. We make hay and foraging equipment in Tumwa. And the mower conditioner is the implement that cuts the hay. And they're shifting all that production down to Monterrey, Mexico. And, it's about a third of our work there. So they announced that there would be significant layoffs. Also on the back of the contract, there is a provision for offering what one might consider a buyout to people that qualify. If you're over 50 years of age, have so many years of service, someone like me, I took advantage of it, because I knew I was living on borrowed time, double secret probation. So yeah, it was time for me to move on. It does provide me with health care to the end of the year. And I did get a bonus for quitting, but obviously it makes sense from an economic point for John Deere, to get rid of their more senior employees and keep the junior ones because they pay less, they have less vacation and so forth. So
basically this is a boondoggle. They're paying stock buybacks up billions of dollars. They're making billions and billions in profits, and then saying, "Oh, market fundamentals. We need to, go to Monterrey, Mexico." While, by the way, groceries are still very high. Rent is still very high. Yet we're being told by Biden, when he can speak, the economy is historic. The economy is doing great. Kamala Harris is saying the economy, we need to move forward and build on from this great economy. Trump, I'm sure if he gets back in there, will sell us fucking fairy dust about a great economy. This economy is a house of cards. Am I wrong?
No, you're exactly right. And both Republicans and Democrats sold us out. And that's these terrible trade agreements that we've entered, or factories and jobs moving to China, Mexico, and other places are a direct result of this. They sold out the American people. But yeah, it's pretty amazing, how people buy into it, how easily they forget. But yeah, I think we're screwed any which way we look at it coming up with this next election.
And Steve, the bottom line is, you and I have been talking for 2 years. I'm not telling people not to vote. I'm not saying elections don't matter at all.
I will.
Okay, I won't. But bottom line, at what point do you say enough is enough, general strike? I'm not saying you could have it tomorrow, but what the UAW has at least been in the background trying to organize, and I'd love your thoughts too, Chris, is a bunch of different industries, sectors, aligning their contracts to go on strike at the same time. That's the only way I could see that you don't have these loopholes like Chris is talking about, where they could keep a factory open with 2 people.
Yeah, we've talked to a bunch of the labor leaders, like Sarah Nelson. We've talked to Joe Burns. We've talked to Jeff Reisberg of the airline attendants. Talked to a lot of different people about class struggle unionism and tying these fights together, because we're left alone, we're just a pinky finger, but together we're a fist. And as a fist, we have a chance. We don't have a chance as pinkies. And there's a lot of soloists out there trying to go it alone. And we need to come together, but we don't need to come together under the very banner of things that are destroying us. And that's the problem right now, is people are like, well, what's your plan? Well, the plan is that you've got unions that are fighting tooth and nail right now just to get energy. We have been de-unionized for so long that the idea of a union action, of union power, of worker power is so foreign and so different than what it used to be that we're having to rebuild that. So you got to earn a general strike, because a general strike is going to require people to have funds to survive while it's going on. It's going to require them to have, food and shelter and things like that. It's a high stakes game. It's important. It's about the only tool that workers have right now, but they can't just do it. It requires a lot of planning, coordination, and all strikes, what do they have? There's always the threat of a scab. And once you start going on strike and you have these general strikes, you have the other group of people who says, fuck it, I'll go work in their shop. And then they'll bring them strike crossing And so we got to make sure that we get word out, we get educated, and we start thinking in terms of how to unify under class, not under unifying under identity, and starting to bring people together that aren't just in these unions, but are on the outside to give support to these unions. I'm sorry, I want to make sure I made that point.
Really the problem is, and something I identified being in union leadership myself is, the way these power brokers, people that control the levers, preserve their power is by keeping the Joe Six Packs divided, right? You're pissed off at your neighbor across the street because you drink Bud Light or whatever my case might be, or the lady down the street who's on welfare and her kids are. And the real robber barons, the real culprits, are the same people that have bought all three branches of our government. The executive, legislative, and our courts, they're all owned, they're all bought. How do you convince union workers, other workers, to do a general strike? Really, that's the problem. And whether you look in, your Facebook, your Twitter, they have you swirling in eddies of people that think the same things you do. It's become very, very difficult to organize anything, to garner any sort of, movement towards this. And it's very difficult. We'd like to find some answers.
And Chris, can you just kind of take us inside? I know you're not working there, but obviously you're in contact with a lot of your John Deere brothers and sisters. How are the workers there doing? Because it takes a mental toll. It's a hard job, and then you got to worry about whether you're going to be laid off or you were just laid off. Tell us about, in Ottumwa and other communities, how are workers dealing with this?
Well, obviously the workers that have been laid off are, very impacted. They're out on the streets. And again, these are small communities. These are good paying jobs. They're leaving the type of jobs you don't want leaving your community. And I don't think anyone's interested in seeing good jobs move down to Mexico. I think the consensus, from what I hear from my fellow coworkers is that, the writing's on the wall. I mean, they've had a genuine strategic shift to move production to Mexico to take advantage of cheap labor sources. And I also might add, the main component in John Deere equipment is steel. And when Trump put, tariffs on Chinese steel being imported into America, made things a little dicey. John Deere still buys Chinese steel, and they can buy it cheaper in China.
Right.
So, and Joe Biden's done nothing to rectify this problem either. It's just business as usual politics.